We are live. How's everybody doing this fine night? My guest host, Michael Robson, here. How are you doing, man?
Man, dude, I cannot complain. Absolutely gorgeous day. Good, productive day. No manic craziness. It's been good, man. I'm great.
That's
Doing
good.
really good.
Good. So, kind of an uneventful day,
I mean,
nothing's happened in the last hour or so to cause anything crazy, But
right? Exactly. It is interesting though. But I was in my shop today. We got 5 shops here in Middle Tennessee. So I was in my main shop today. I was talking to some of the staff, and it's really interesting because one of the ladies that works up there, she doesn't know me all that well. When she looks at it, I'm just part of the management team and oversee things.
Right.
And we were talking a little bit about politics and the election and all the things going on. And she's so funny. She goes, now I'm not sure, who you're voting for, because I know you have a husband, and she kind of goes down that route and like totally pigeonholed me as a gay man into voting on the Democratic Party and all that. And I looked at her and I said, listen, I care about this country, our cost of living, our tax structure, and our freedom. She goes, say no more. I know who you're voting for. And I was like, yeah, it really started. It was an interesting conversation with the staff because, a couple of the guys, one of the guys that works up there, he's worked for us, probably 20 years now for their family company. And he's an older African-American man. And I just started telling him, I was like, now listen, dude, I was like, that woman gets in office. I said, you could probably start your own business like this, bro. I said, $20,000 forgivable business loan. And I said, and to top it off, bro, all you got to do is sell weed. I was like, you won't even get in trouble for it anymore because you're black. I can't do that. So it was a fun conversation, to say the least. Lots of laughs today.
You know what? The weird thing I find about this whole thing, and as we get closer, everybody's emotions get higher and stuff like that.
Right.
But I always like to remind people, Trump's not the answer. He's just, when Trump said they're not coming at me, this is one thing he said that's absolutely 100% I believe is true. 100%. When he said they're not coming after me, they're coming after you, I'm just in the way, I believe that.
100%.
Right? I absolutely believe that. So that's what people need to understand. It's not about him, right? He's not the savior. Not enough of the uniparty is going to be voted out this election in Congress or anywhere else to have any true effect. He will be roadblocked by everybody from his own party to everything like that if he gets elected. There's very little doubt in my mind.
Right.
And I just think that people need to grasp the fact that we need to take it upon ourselves to do what we need to do to be prepared. And we need to push, if Trump does win election, and I say this, and I want to remind everybody, I say this all the time, so it's very important that you listen, but we need to push him to not just do what he promised, but go even further. I really want to, I want the federal government out of
everything.
Regulating guns at all. I want them out of my life, right? They're supposed to be an addition to my life. The average United States citizen should not be afraid of the government. Should not be.
It's quite an interesting thing because I don't know who it was put up a map of gun ownership across the world, right? And you look at, and it really made me think because I've traveled to 91 countries. So I've been in a lot of these places. I was looking at the map, and I was looking Brazil is one of those countries like America where 75 out of 100 citizens tend to own a gun. But what's really interesting is you look at these Eastern African countries, when you look at the Sudan, you look at Ethiopia, you look at Kenya, Uganda, a lot of these all the way to Madagascar. And it's interesting because they have the same statistics that we do here in the United States. And it's really interesting because what you generally don't see in those countries, even though, we've seen some crazy stuff in Brazil, they tried to ban X and all these different things. And ultimately it didn't work, right? They kind of rise up, they fight back. And you see this a lot. I've seen this a lot in these Eastern African countries when I've been over there, is that as the government, whether it is the actual government or it's some faction that's trying to rise up and steal power or whatever, they tend not to be successful. And the core culture of these countries tend to stay intact because people rise up and demand. You're not going to disrupt. You're not going to change who I am, my identity, my way of life, my culture, my community, those sorts of things. And I think that, unfortunately, we were talking about this last night, is too many people here in America are just pussies, man. They're just like, they'll say it, you know, oh, don't get in my way, don't get in my way. But very few people are willing to take up arms and say, you know, and again, not the call to become a violent culture or a violent people, but like you say many times,
we are a violent species.
Is the answer, you know, to get your point across. And I mean, it just is the way it is. And I think you're right. I think we've got to step up and call these guys to bigger. And I was going to say a second ago, I do think this is really important because the media has done, you know, this bang up job for, good God, like 12, really more like 12 years now, 10, 12 years shooting at Trump and demonizing this guy as if he's some narcissistic, you know, evil human being. But if people will listen to his actual rhetoric, when they will listen to him speak, what he doesn't say is, I'm going to fix this country. What he doesn't say is, I'm your answer. What he says is, we have to come together. We have to vote. We have to do this. He really does call the American people to what we were talking about last night, that sense of responsibility to say, we gotta step up. You know, this isn't me, it's us.
Well, and I do appreciate that. Like, again, like, and this is I've been, for before the Trumpers get really fucking pissed at me, I have been calling for everybody to just, you know, conglomerate behind Trump and push forward for 2 years. You know, like, you know, if he was going to run, it's time to get behind him. We got to save the country because what's happening now is authoritarianism. Like,
exactly.
I mean, I can always point to, if you look what's happening in North Carolina right now, there are still thousands of people missing, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people living outside. Like they're living outside. It's about to snow in North Carolina. It gets super cold, as we talked about before. And today, like yesterday, I think we sent $157 million to Lebanon because our ally Israel is bombing the fuck out of Beirut. I have a client in Beirut. He sends me videos and shit like that. Yeah. It's wild. Like, you can see, like, they're just so you know. And I'm not. This isn't to make people for or against Israel, because fuck Israel, fuck Ukraine, fuck Gaza, fuck Russia, fuck Lebanon, fuck any country that's not America. I'm not America first. I'm America only. Yeah. So, like, and there's a big distinction, because until we get our shit figured out, I don't want to have anything to do with anybody fucking else. I don't want to let one motherfucker in this place. The only way we should be letting people in is if they are independently wealthy and have massive potential to help our economy. That should be the only way we're letting
other countries do it.
Yeah, other countries do that. But the weird thing is like, today another $450 million to fucking Ukraine.
So I about shit myself, because obviously then we were seeing last night and this morning FEMA and SBA coming out saying we've run out of money to write the loans to the American people for $750 to help them. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, you're going to keep shoveling money into these other countries that literally, like, every time I hear some asshole from the White House make some comment about, if we don't fight for Ukraine, we're going to, you know, democracy's fucked. I'm like, first of all, we're not a democracy. We can go down that rabbit hole any day.
Right.
All day long.
Well, we're going to in a little bit.
Why the hell do I care about somebody else's democracy? I don't give a fuck. And if you don't want to be in that shit, then leave. Like,
well, here's the thing.
Stuck. Like, unless you're in like North Korea, you know, you're not really stuck.
Ukraine's not a democracy, though.
Right.
They don't have elections. Like,
no.
And this is the part of our history that people do not like to admit. We installed that motherfucker. Absolutely. Our CIA installed him. It's not even a question, right? You don't need to believe me, but you'd just be wrong, right? I find it wild that it's like that, but that's where we're at. Like, we're sending money to, like, we talk about, like, in America, you soft ass fucking bitches. America labels everybody as Nazis, right? There are actual fucking Nazis in the Ukraine military. It's called the Azov Battalion, and they've been a part of their military for a long time. They're actual fucking Nazis. Literally. And we are funding them.
And we're funding them, but God forbid somebody over here raises their voice and says, I don't want to fund that. You're now a goddamn Nazi.
Yeah, like, I'm a Nazi for not wanting to fund Nazis.
Right.
It's so fucked up. It's so strange.
I just literally, it's funny because you got to think about the mental gymnastics we go through for all of this cultural bullshit that's going on in our country. Right. You know, I was literally right before we got on, I was messaging back and forth a little bit with Josh Cedar, you know, who's just finally admitted that he was running a grift on this trans agenda the whole time.
Yeah.
But you know, it's this really interesting thing to go back and forth. It's like the mental gymnastics to fit into any of these categories that isn't just flat out, I'm an American, I'm seeking for freedom, liberty, justice, and the pursuit of happiness as an individual in this country where I'm supposed to have this freedom. In order to fit into all these categories, the mental gymnastics you have to go through, it's just mind-numbing. And it doesn't, I feel like every time I even try to like get into some of these conversations, like the don't fund Nazis or you're a Nazi, like, or if you don't fund Nazis, you're a Nazi. It's like, I feel like my IQ drops 10 points every time I dig deep into this and try. Cause I'm like, I can't even reason with you unless I'm as stupid as you are. Like, it's just literally just, it's unreal to me. It blows me away. And it scares the shit out of me, really, because then you just think about the average person in this country who's just swallowed all of this propaganda and this bullshit, and they're regurgitating it as if it's literally like written history on a fucking stone tablet that we dug out of the ground, you know, 100,000 years ago. I just, it's so fucking weird to me, man.
Well, I mean, we're very stupid as a country. I mean, like they've made sure we are. And the sad thing is we hear like if you're against the Second Amendment, by the way, like I don't even know what you're doing here. Like I was just having a text conversation with one of my relatives, right? And I basically said, like, the two sides are like, we need to decide what happens next, because what happens next is not peaceful coexistence. No, you know, we need to decide how that's going to go. Because, and I'm not talking, and I'm one of the big believers that I think people on the left, like the actual left that are the Kamala voters, I think that's way smaller than what people think it is. Like way smaller.
Absolutely.
The whole freakazoids of the fucking all the movements they put and everything like that. I think that's a very small thing. Yeah. But there's no middle ground anymore at all whatsoever. Like if they've lost, I can tell you this. I literally voted for Obama twice. Like if they've lost me, I'm a 90s Democrat. Like I'm straight up 90s Democrat. I still look at myself like that in many ways. And I do regret voting for Obama, by the way. Like, cause I mean, once you get educated about it, like, oh, he's a fucking horrible piece of shit person, you know, like, oh, he didn't do a fuck thing. Like, I mean, at all. Well, goddamn.
Well, and when you realize, I mean, I know the memes floating around there, but when you talk about, you know, all these people who are former leaders, you know, who are out there shitting all over Trump, and you stop and, you know, the meme that's going around for 32 of those, or for 28 of the last 32 years, those assholes held power. They were the leader of this country, and they blame every fucking problem on a guy who did one term in office. It's like, we all know, and listen, whether people can articulate this or not, the average human being does have some level of common sense. And I do believe this. I don't think I'm trying to give a benefit of the doubt here. Yeah. We know, and that's why we have term limits. No one person can spend 4 years in that office and literally shift the entirety of history, unless you start a war, you know, literally divide the country, which has not happened at this point, although they to say that, right? But, you know, outside of some real true extreme that occurs, like, yeah, of course you're going to make fucked up policies, but it's just like the Keystone Pipeline. You know, we go back, we were talking about it last night. Yeah. Biden comes in, shuts the damn thing down, fucks our entire, you know, system of, you know, financial stability, energy stability, and independence in this country. But the truth is, the next guy can come in at the end of that 4 years, turn the damn thing back on, and in no time we're back to where we were. So it's not like if we're still struggling with energy independence and Trump is in office for the next 4 years, then it's Trump's fault too. And in that case, it's easy for me to look and go, bro, you didn't do your job, right? Like, but it only took Biden 30 seconds to sign a fucking piece of paper to disrupt what you spent 4 years getting us to independence. So let's get back there. We got to turn it up. Like you said, we've got to call for that responsibility and that accountability. for Trump and whomever he puts in his cabinet and those key leadership positions to turn it up a notch, because we got to play catch up. We're not just fixing shit. We're playing catch up at this point.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And it's the weird shit how people think that like he can fix everything. We need to participate. We absolutely need to participate, you know?
Yes.
And I wish people could see that shit. Like I don't think that a lot of people do.
They don't. They're too lazy. It's really not that they can't see it. I think the vast majority, you know, it's like I was sharing that junk last night with this woman in Alabama. I mean, she's still going today, and I've just backed off because obviously you're not going anywhere. It's now you're just chasing your tail like a dog. But you know, you look at it and go, quite frankly, the problem with somebody like this woman who's continuing to argue things where she's getting facts is that she's too lazy to go look. So she's just going to swallow that propaganda and regurgitate it over and over and over again. It's not that she's not capable. She's absolutely capable. And really, if you dig into anything for 5 seconds, you start to figure out, you know, again, you can listen to Joe Biden talk for the last 4 years and determine very quickly he is mentally unfit to be in office. It's not a mystery. It's that that people only take those 5-second sound bites and live off of them versus the responsibility of, I need to understand what the fuck is going on in this country or what's wrong with the dude. You know, it's like
in 2020, Mark, both Mark and I, like, I was like, I can't believe people are going to vote for a cognitively declining person to be the president. It's fucking crazy, right? Because I knew back then. Like, I mean, like he
even said like 4 years earlier after the Obama term ended, like, I'm not seeking office. I don't think I'm okay. Like, I'm too old. Basically, there were a couple of clips here and there. It's like he said it himself. You know, it's just
you know, you said something a little earlier. You said something a little earlier that struck me, and I've talked about this before, I think, but you said like 28 of the last 32 years. It's actually, if you take a look at it, it's much longer than that.
Well, yeah, I mean, LBJ was, to me, now, granted, I think it was before LBJ, but I think Lyndon Johnson was like the windfall of like the dominoes starting to fall over, because when they got rid of JFK, this dude came in and I mean, he fucked with our culture at a deep level, you know, the social, you know, social welfare and keep the black man down and all the things that just started to degrade that for 100 years up to that point, we were overcoming after the Civil War and becoming a more stable, centered country without all those divides. And all of a sudden, you start to topple that over.
I can see that being part of it, because that's right about the time that, like, you know, when you look at it, where you know, the Rockefeller health, like it's because it's all kind of intermingled. Yeah. But if you really take a look at the regime that is in power right now, like, so if you look at the Bushes, the Cheneys, the Clintons, Obamas, and Biden is really just Obama with his, you know,
he's a puppet,
right?
The regime,
right? Yeah. So if you look at this, you know, Bush Sr. was the head of the CIA, which many people could argue actually runs way more than the country, especially back then. But he was head of the CIA for a while. And then he was vice president for 8 years. And then he was president for 4 years. Right. And then Clinton was president for 8 years. And then Bush again, the Timu version of George Bush, was president for 8 years. And then Obama was president for 8 years. And then it was supposed to be another Clinton. I mean, so it. I remember thinking, like, maybe it's not a great idea that the name's not really changing all that much,
right?
You know, like, and that's where we're at right now. And this regime's been in power for, you know, besides 4 years, probably 48 years. Right? They've probably been in power for close to 50 fucking years, right? And that is terrifying when you think about it. And it's amazing to me, like, because we're about to watch some clips of Kamala Harris on. Brett Baer just, you know, asking her normal questions
she can't
and that she can't seem to answer. But we're about to go through a few things where she gets either stuff stunningly wrong or it's everything is Trump, like everything's evil, right? So when I don't like when Trump does this.
It's just so.
Yeah, but I don't even like when Trump does it. Stop talking about what the other person did. I want to know what you're going to fucking do.
That's right.
And he's done a good job about that to a certain degree.
Here's the thing.
A certain degree, you know,
teach this in leadership stuff in the nonprofit and mass leadership world. But I used to tell people, like, because your job in that Oval Office, obviously, yes, you can affect things, you can sign things, you can influence policy. I mean, you are a stopgap to a lot of things. The truth is, the person in that office, the main thing they can actuate is hitting the nuclear codes and telling our military to go bomb the shit out of something. I mean, that's their real true power at the end of the day, right? So, but at the same time, your job is to lead people, to bring people along, to inspire, to lift up people as a country. And you look at this country that way as a group of people who need to follow behind a leader who inspires them. And what I used to tell leaders all the time, like, if you spend all your time talking about the shit you're against, nobody's going to end up following you. But if you'll step up and talk about what you're for and what you stand for and what you love and what you're passionate about, people will follow that shit all day long.
Yes,
and we have drifted so far from the concept of core leadership in this country to say, I'm not going to get up and shit on everybody else. If I just talk about what I'm for, people will naturally understand what I am against. And I don't have to speak negatively, and people will be inspired to follow along.
Exactly. And I just find it kind of, I don't like it when Trump does it, like I said, but I kind of find it weird when, like, it's like, you know, the focus is so much on Trump, you know, like to the point where it's almost like they're trying to blame Trump for the position we're in now when they've been in office. Like they're campaigning as if he's the incumbent, right?
Right.
But here,
let's get I hear we're not going back. We're not going back to your 4 years. Like, you keep saying that shit out loud.
And the way she does it, she's like, "We're not going back. We're not going back." She gets that look on her face, like, "We're not doing it. We're not going back." Like, the fuck are you doing? You know,
I don't get it. Are we not going back to Hunter doing lines of coke in the Oval Office? I don't know. Like, what are we referring to here?
Well, here's Vice President Kamala Harris, and if me saying her name, however I want to say it, upsets you, I must remind you I don't fucking care. But let's take a look.
Let's go.
Legal immigrants, would you estimate your administration has?
Right. I'll let the clip. We'll let the clip play the whole way through first. I just wanted to say right out of the bat, dude, it's fucking on her throat, which is great.
Right.
So.
It is.
That's how it should be. That's how it should be for Trump too. I don't mind when they ask Trump really, really, really fucking hard questions. You should be able to speak about this because here's my thing. You know, when people were like the debate, well, it was 3-on-1. First of all, Trump still did pretty fucking good. You know what I mean? Secondly, it's not like he's going to be pitched softballs every single fucking time he's in front of another world leader either. No. Like this shows how they are under fire. So we'll listen to the whole thing through, and then you can talk first, and then we'll go.
Was released into the country over the last 3.5 years.
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have, and you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called
And-
the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding,
But
please?
here- but this-
you have to let me finish.
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and
in
they
the
didn't
middle
bring up
of
that bill.
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things.
Wow.
I literally, and this is where the American people don't know. I really believe they just don't know. Like, that is one function of the executive branch of government, and the person who sits at the resolute desk inside the Oval Office has the ability, with the stroke of a pen, to activate our military to shut the fucking border down and keep these fuckers out of our country.
Yeah.
They don't need Congress. They don't need the Senate. They need absolutely fucking nothing to protect the border. Nobody needs to pass legislation. Period. Right. So quit blaming Congress, Senate, anybody else, but the person you see when you look in the fucking mirror, because that's who's to blame for the problem that we have in this country right now. Period.
I find it wild how, like, if that's your idea of fixing something, you should never work on somebody. You should never work on anybody's car or anything like that. That's fucked up.
Right. Like, this is the thing. Like, she goes through there. Like, this one's particularly stands out to me. So I'll use it as an example. But like, when you lean in there and you go, oh, before we put the SAVE Act or the CHIPS Act in there, right? You know, that fucking bill, first of all, was one of those omnibus bills that had all this pork fat bullshit all shoved in it. One of the things, see, this is where the American people got to wake up and pay attention. One of the things that was in the back of that was this amendment to a thing called the Lacey Act, which is an invasive species act. This is animals. This obviously matters to me. They literally, had that gone through, had that amendment not been taken out of the back of that bill, you couldn't fucking cross the state line with your dog or cat without spending 5 years in jail and $50,000 fine. Because for you to go from the state of Alabama to the state of Florida with your dog in the back seat of your car, you brought an invasive species in and put the environment in danger. And that bitch right there was the leader of that fucking bill, man. Like, this is the stuff people aren't paying attention to. They're so drawn into the wrong shit. And they shove all these things in to remove our freedom is what they're doing, and to have control over us. But this is the stuff that I sit back and I go, don't tell me you're going to pass a damn bill. I don't want to know about your bill. If you got to protect the border, then shut the fucker down and send our military down there to stand guard. It's that simple.
It's so wild that we've gotten to the stage where our federal government thinks that it's in their purview to, like, decide what can and can't happen with the states like that. Right. Like, if a state has, like, don't bring your dog into our,
amendment.
Yeah, if a state's like, hey, don't bring your dog into our state without checking with us first, that's one thing. You know, I probably won't visit that state because I don't want to fucking answer where I'm going and what I'm doing. But
exactly.
But for the federal government to be like that, like, that's like, again, our federal government is operating very much in the antithesis of how it's supposed to actually function. It's supposed to, like, protect our right to be able to do shit like that.
Well, again, it's the treatment we have as American taxpayers who are paying the bill and employing these people. That the mindset is so upside down. We're waiting for them to tell us what to do.
Right.
It's like,
it's
you fucking
very
serious?
fucked up.
I pay your salary. Fuck you. Let me tell you exactly what you're going to do. Like, come on. Anyway.
So here's another. This is another little clip from this. Here we go.
You call Donald Trump. He's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden.
The fucking pause and the look. Oh, she's like, you asked that. Holy shit.
I'm sorry, what?
So here's reality. This has been my crux the entire time, especially when it came down to it. Like, when all of a sudden he was like, he was found not fit to be able to stand trial for a crime he actually fucking committed.
Right.
Like that should have been removal from office.
No.
You know, like if you're not
right there all day long, baby, all day long,
right? And then it still didn't strike a lot of Democrats that he was not competent until they saw him in the debate. And I will say this: I said it right when it happened. Me and Mark watched it live. That debate was a setup to get rid of Joe Biden.
Of course, it was.
He was polling horribly. He was polling so bad that I, in my mind, they didn't feel like they could cheat enough, believably, to beat Trump.
Well, and here's the thing: the American people had to see him at some level because they didn't have COVID to hide him in a basement anymore, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't have a way. They didn't have a legitimate way to hide him without admitting there's a problem, right? And up to that point, the man hadn't shown up for pressers or anything. He wasn't taking questions from the press. He wasn't doing anything but scripted, guided things. And of course, 90% of that, it's like when he went to fucking Hawaii, man, the dude slept through shit. And that's fine. When you're that old, I probably would do the same damn thing. Like, it just is what it is. I don't even, like, I can't shoot at him for whatever's happened to him physically, right? But like, because that just happened. Like, I look at him, and my grandfather has dementia. There's so many things I see that I'm like, that's exactly the same damn thing, right? But even beyond that, like, I look at my grandfather that passed away 2 years ago. Like, I just watch the way he moves about. My other grandfather had his mental faculty with him the whole time. But for the last 2 years, he was alive with congestive heart failure and all kinds of other issues. He was a non-functional human. I mean, I ended up wiping his ass. I can't tell you how many times, you know, which was a really not easy thing, but it's just life, man. That's just the cycle of life. You know, you look at him and I'm like, there's no way the American people can't start to see this shit. And then everybody around him is like, no. It's like at some point, you know, the veil is starting to get pulled back and people are starting to realize like none of y'all are honest. Nobody's honest.
Well, that's where I'm at with it. Like, people very obviously knew that he was cognitively declining, and nobody said anything. And to me, that's treasonous also.
Well, sure
like,
it is.
I mean,
you endangered this country and the safety of the American people, period.
You know, tyranny and treason, these words are words we should all use extremely, extremely often right now. But let's see what her answer is, because her brain literally started to melt. So hang on.
I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
after George Clooney said within a few.
Yeah, but the thing is, he didn't ask her about because Biden's on the ballot. He asked you when you first noticed it.
Right.
Like,
that's what she's good at. She doesn't answer questions.
Yeah, she doesn't answer questions because he asked you when you noticed it.
This rhetoric, this circular reasoning that you use, which is gaslighting. That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
I've watched him from the Oval Office to the boardroom, and his capacity to make decisions that matter for the people of America that matter. And I'm like, what the fuck did you just say? Like,
by the way, this is a woman that accused Biden of being a rapist and a racist.
Exactly. Again,
nomination
just
process.
4 years ago, we got plenty of clips of her calling him all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And
she believed his accusers and that he's a racist. And, you know, frankly, he is. So, I mean, that man's a racist. Like, that's an old white man racist.
When you do the eulogy for the Grand Dragon at the KKK, let's just, like, there's no other, like, you don't do that. You don't do that unless you were in that camp of ideology. Like, yes, you can change, but I'm sorry, like, you can't come out and be like, I've always been a champion for civil rights. By the way, I did a eulogy for the Grand Dragon at the KKK. Like, it just, I'm sorry. It just
doesn't work that way.
There's no way that works together. That would be, you know, I mean, listen, when I was in junior high and high school, I worked with Louis Farrakhan's son. Okay. And one of his sons. I mean, you know, Louis, Farrakhan's probably got 400 children with 400 women all over this country, but, you know, whatever, it is what it is. But, you know, that would be like Louis Farrakhan walking into the situation that I worked with his kid and being like, as a white man, you know, you and my son are like equal. Like, that would never come out of the man's mouth, right? Like, but I mean, that's the kind of logic. And I'm like, like I remember, okay, I think I brought this up on an episode, but somebody that's been a friend of mine, and we vehemently disagree on 99% of things right now. But Sean King, who is, most people know him as a race baiting, he was involved a lot with BLM in those early days and things like that. But Sean and I know each other from pastoring churches, and we're friends. And like, I love Sean. I don't agree with Sean on most things. There's days I want to punch Sean in the throat, but I love Sean. Like, I love him as a person, right? And that's how we should be as a country. I mean, look, we can all disagree and still have friendships, but I remember when during the last election cycle, I text Sean. I was like, explain this to me, because we all know who this man is, right? Explain to me how Black America can hold up this old fucked up geezer as a beacon of civil rights, and all he sent back to me was a photo of Obama, and I was like, got it. Like like I got it. Like, it wasn't, because to me Obama wasn't a icon, and so to me, I didn't attribute the cultural appropriation of putting the white man in the VP spot under the first quote unquote Black president, which isn't the first Black president. We can go down that rabbit hole too, but there's a lot there. But I just remember thinking, like, again, these things where you just put in association, right? So you've got all this narrative behind Biden, quote unquote, rescuing us out of COVID, when in fact he signed the bigger fucking fucked up spending bill and continued to pay unemployment and run our federal government into a ditch financially, just on that alone, much less the pipeline and all the other things. But it rescued the American economy, and he brought 10 million jobs back. The 10 million jobs they all got rid of when they shut the country down, and then gave them all illegals, and they're all part-time, not full-time now. All these, the little nuances they like to leave out of the reporting, but because you put all this hero narrative, they're trying to put that same attribute. They're trying to do that same cultural appropriation for her campaign. And I'm like, because we all know she didn't even fucking exist for 3 out of the last 4 years. Nobody knew, like, nobody saw her do shit.
No.
Not one.
She was, they put her in charge of shit that they didn't want to get taken care of.
Exactly.
She's the border czar. You guys fucked that shit up on day one and then didn't want to fix it because you're trying to import voters. I mean, straight up.
Well, and even beyond that, I think even let's even go to they're not doing something nefarious with the mass invasion of people in our country. Okay, let's just say they're that incompetent and fucked up the border. Let's just go there. They hand it, and I believe this wholeheartedly. And now you're seeing some of this play out between her and Biden, right? But like, he hated her, and there's no doubt in his short list of potential Black women candidates, she was not in the short list, and so. When you look at that, and I think, honest to God, I think he looked at her and went, give this bitch the border, because she can't do anything about it, and it'll fuck her up, so she'll never be a problem for me. Like, I genuinely believe that was underneath some of the motivation there. I'm sorry. It's going to be really hard for you to convince me of that. And then I think you're right. I think there was intentionality, obviously, behind it. And that just multiplied it. But I genuinely don't think that Biden has the mental capacity to make that appointment for her out of
Biden made no.
I think he gave it to her to go, fuck you, bitch, go fix the problem.
He made no appointments. Like, I mean, I don't believe he's made a decision. I really don't. He has been cognitively impaired the entire time.
100%.
Pretty severely. They just didn't drug him up and prepare him enough.
Right.
And it couldn't be enough in the can for his debate. I mean, that's the long and short of it. So.
We'll also talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out, even people who worked for him in the Oval Office.
Fucking sucked at their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, it's always amazing to me how, like, and I think he did a good job, but god damn, like, I mean, fucking, she just avoided the whole goddamn thing.
A puppet without saying I'm a puppet, right? I mean, really, because when you will not address even some nuance of the question being asked. It tells us everything we need to know because your handlers are making sure that your mouth is fucking shut.
Right. Give me a sec. Oh, here we go.
Agree with him. This is a democracy. Talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a
No, it's not.
Never was. Never was.
It is a constitutional
republic. We have a democratic voting process, but we have a constitutional republic.
It's a constitutional republic. It is not a democracy.
It is led by the people, not the leaders.
Yeah, it's so frustrating that like they keep saying it. They keep saying it. It's a danger to democracy. Fuck democracy. I want my constitutional republic. You know why? Because it shouldn't matter who the fuck gets elected at all. It should not matter how you guys decide to protect my border or decide to like have our common defense, or what you do to protect my rights from the states. If we had a constitutional republic and it was based on individual liberty, I would be able to own land outright without property tax. I would be able to buy and own any weapon I fucking want to own, and you would have no idea about it. And I would be able to say whatever the fuck I want to say. Right. And that's all I give a shit about. Leave me the fuck alone. Let me protect myself. Let me do whatever the fuck I want on my land, and leave me the fuck alone. Because that's what the American goddamn way is. Right. Like, and if I'm well armed, and if a foreign invading force comes to try to take our fucking country, I'll gladly fucking lay down my life to be free like that.
Well, and this is the thing. People don't realize, we were talking earlier about the idea of how many generations back a lot of this degradation of freedom in the core of our country is. Look at when they erased the gold standard in this country.
Right.
When you talk about being able to not be known for every fucking thing you do. See, people think it had to do with needing gold for manufacturing or trade or reserve. Bullshit. The thing that people don't realize, and they don't think about it because nobody touches this shit anymore. Nobody's picking up a gold coin anymore. Unless you were an avid collector, somebody like me who was in the business for a while, like you just don't touch this stuff, right? But the thing is I can take your American fucking coin that's made out of gold, melt that motherfucker down to anything I want. It's still worth the exact same amount of money, no matter where the fuck I go, anywhere on this planet, and I can trade with it, and you can't control it. And so they have to get rid of assets and things that give people the autonomy to exist with complete freedom. They did not get rid of the gold standard because of World War this, that, or the other, or some great economic crisis in this country. It had nothing to fucking do with it. It was being able to control and understand what is every fucking American doing. There's a reason there's a serial number on every dollar bill.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's fucked up. I mean, people don't understand. Have you seen this guy, by the way? Have you seen this?
It's amazing.
So we're on YouTube right now. So I'm not going to play this outright because it's literally, just so everybody knows, this is a young man who is basically is openly stating that he was essayed by Tim Walz. And I will say this. I hope they vet this motherfucker.
Oh, touchdown Timmy.
I hope they vet the fuck out of him. Okay. Well, because they're going to be like, it's weird. He's black and gay, and the left is still just going to fucking come for his ass. Right. Instead of believing him, they are going to come for him. Right. So he's part of two demographics that they claim should be protected at all costs. And they're not going to believe him because he's speaking out about a old white man, which is very strange to me.
Mental gymnastics necessary to exist within the context of rising up with the less than 0.01% of the population of America that we've made this special class. It's like, no, doesn't work.
It's very weird. It's very weird. So people should just admit that it's not. This isn't about black, white. It's not. Here's how you know it's not about race, because they're going to try to tear this dude apart.
Exactly.
It's not about sexuality because they're going to try to tear this dude apart. Yep. Right? It's about it's about defeating people that they don't like.
No, it's about
that's what it is.
About defeating the truth. That's what it's about.
Yeah, it really is.
I don't even care about all the things and labels we can put on it. These people want to erase truth because if you erase truth and truth becomes subjective to your point of view and not an absolute, then anything goes, and you can govern without boundary.
Whether it was in April.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, you're good. But you can govern without boundary. If I don't have truth and I tell you it's truth, whether it's truth or not, and you don't have an absolute foundation, whether it's moral or just factual, I don't care how you look at it, right? But if there isn't a foundation for absolutes, you know, and I watch this with my kids learning all this fucked up Common Core new math shit, right? And I'm like, I'm sorry, like we may get to 2 + 2 = 4, but you should just know that 2 + 2 = 4. Why? Because it's a fucking fact, which means it is a truth, right? But the minute you come to me and go 2 + 2 could actually equal 5, go fuck yourself, because where the hell did that come from? There's no possible like, but that's where we are, and that's exactly what they'll do. Like with that guy, 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 in his story. 2 + 2 has to equal 3 because he's got to be one shy of actual logic.
Right.
I mean,
to have enough balls and bravery to just be out there like that, like, I hope dude squeaky clean, and I really hope that they don't give it, that it doesn't get to be too much, but they're going to come after his ass. They're coming after him, and which is sad, because shouldn't people be like, whoa, maybe like he's talking about being a child that was essayed by Tim Walz when Tim Walz was a teacher. Should we not maybe even just talk about this
for a hot minute?
Yeah, but they're not, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to. But let's listen to this one.
Time, you're right. They'll go after him. And when I say they won't vet him, they're not going to vet him.
No, it's automatic.
In some dude's past, and they're going to turn it into a fucking scandal, right? Like
it's automatic. Yeah, it's automatic. Right. Remember during the vid that the whole bunch of doctors showed up. I forget what her name was. She was an African immigrant doctor, and I can't remember what her name was, but she came out and talked about hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and everything like that. And they were like, oh, but she believes in demons because like the country she's from has voodoo in it. Like, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? So what? Okay, first of all, you're like, and this is coming from the atheist in me.
Sure.
I don't,
hey,
I don't want to have to say it, but
let's drop a nuance. Let's drop a nuance to this. If you just watch politics and you watch Adam Schiff do anything, there are demons that walk the earth.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. Just like I said,
it's literal.
I've been talking recently about like how I'm probably agnostic because I believe in evil and good, so that means there has to be forces beyond it. Anyway, but like they went after her for that. They totally tried to discredit her, but she's talking facts and statistics and studies, and they don't even care. Like they tried to, Dr. John Ioannidis, who again I've talked about him so many times. I wish I could actually meet him. It's like it's on my bucket list to actually I would love to buy him lunch sometime and just like talk to him because he's like one of the most brilliant minds on the planet, and he's the most cited person ever for public health, basically. And he's from Stanford, and he ran the seroprevalence study early in 2020 that showed that the vid was in the ballpark of the seasonal flu, Right. But they went after him, like calling him a fucking quack and a punk. Like he is the most cited scientist
in the world
for public health in the world. Like, and you're calling him a quack because he produced a study that is now on the World Health Organization website. Right. Like just.
The better part is Binax, whoever it is that makes all the stupid tests that actually don't. Now the test is a combined test. One test to tell you if you have COVID or the flu. It's like, how much more proof do I need to know that this whole time you had a bunch of bullshit spewing out of your mouth that I can spit on a stick or dip it up my nose or whatever the fuck I got to do to take the test? It probably isn't accurate anyway. But either way, the same test is going to tell me if I have the flu or COVID. Like, I know, listen, I did pre-med. I have just enough understanding of microbiology to understand there's no fucking way that one dipstick, unless the virus has the same core components at its origin to elicit the same response in the human body.
Right.
that you can run 2 tests off of one stick with one antigen that tells me how the reaction occurs. It's just not possible. Again, if we remove truth, I can sell you, oceanfront property in the middle of fucking Idaho.
I wish I should dig up this post, but at one point in time, California, like remember when they switched from, and we'll get off this because I do want to do this video, but
yeah,
at one point in time they switched from a death count to cases.
Right.
I mean, death is pretty final, even though they padded those. A case for me, like if I caught it and a 90-year-old caught it, those are 2 very different scenarios.
Right.
Like extremely different scenarios, right? But the barriers to opening up, like the different zones of opening up for California, were never attainable ever, because just from the false positive percentage of the test, they were never going to be under the threshold. Like literally just from the false positive. And the PCR test was like, it was everybody realizes this. That was a scam they ran on America.
Right.
Like they were running it at 48 cycles. Anything over 40 cycles, you can find anything in anybody. Like you can find any fucking thing. You can have a little fragment of something and it will test positive. You can find anything in anybody. And you don't need to believe me. You can literally go and look up the data on this and talk to the dude that invented it, because it was never meant to be a diagnostic tool like that.
A dollar bill and slide some of that sludge right onto your dipstick and you'll find the virus you're looking for. Like, exactly.
Because
there's a tiny piece of that DNA component of that virus that exists in other viruses or just fucking exists. And all of a sudden, oh, look, there it is. It's like, are you serious?
So just all of it was just so stupid. So, and people don't, it was amazing to me how people were losing their rights and nobody was doing research. Like I was only like, I felt like, am I the only one that's doing research on this shit? Like, because like, very frankly, if you actually look at the research and the numbers, this is way overblown, like way overblown, you know? Right. And I was hoping like, okay, people are just panicking. And then like about like 2 weeks in, I was like, oh, this is purposeful. You know, like, oh, they're going for it. I remember looking at my wife and saying that. I was like, they're going for it. Like the elites are going for it.
I was in the process of leaving Los Angeles, moving back to Tennessee, and they were talking about this Chinese virus, right? This outbreak that was occurring. And, you know, you're hearing this and you're seeing these people in media in California. Cause I said something to my mother and she's like, no, I haven't heard about that yet. And I'm like, oh, I think you're going to, cause I was like, they're already talking about shutting down airports in California. Yeah. Like there's crazy talk that I'd never heard in my lifetime, you know? And I'm like, this is just fucking weird. And you're not hearing about it. And I'm like,
bro, we were on a cruise ship
like a month before it really like, you know, started to take off. And I remember like I had no clue. We got moved back here and all of a sudden 2 weeks later, the world starts shutting down. And I'm like, holy fucking shit. I'm so glad I'm not in LA because that place shut down hard.
Yeah. We were on a cruise ship. We were worried they might not let us back in the country.
Yep.
And to make it matters worse, and this is no shit, to make matters worse, all that Italy, all that shit was from Italy was going on, right?
Right.
And my wife's like passport says she was born in Italy. So it's like, I'm like, fuck, this is not going to be good.
Let me back up and let me share a little story. And I think this is where it's important for people to like ask real questions. In 2001, 2, 3, and 4, the Disney Corporation hired me to go aboard the Disney cruise ships during the holidays and provide, basically non-denominational religious church services and Christmas Eve services and things like that for people on the cruise ships. Anyway, we were in St. Lucia on December 23rd. I mean, this date will be emblazoned in my head forever because it was a very traumatic thing for me at the time. Now, looking back now, I would not have had the fear that I have. We were on this private beach. We're out doing a walk. Now, we've ridden this like 8-wheel ATV thing, you know, with all these people out to this beach, and the whole way they're telling us all about the island, the culture, the language, you know, all this. One of the facts they throw down is, hey, St. Lucia has one of the highest concentrations of AIDS, HIV in the Caribbean. Right. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, like I hear it, but I've been working in Haiti long enough to go, I'd like to see the numbers on that because I'm not sure if that's true or not, you know. Right. Anyway, we get out to the beach. We're out there. We've done horseback riding. We've eat fresh lobster on the beach. We're doing all the touristy things and everything. And my ex and I are walking down the beach. And I thought I stepped on a sand spur. I lift my foot up and I got a 2-inch hypodermic needle sticking out of the bottom of my foot.
Damn, that's fucking crazy.
And now we've just heard drug use, illicit sex, all these things, and the HIV thing. So I'm back in the infirmary on the Disney cruise ship. And these people are like, we don't keep anaphylaxis on the ship. We can fly this shit in. It'll cost you, I think it was like $4,000 or something.
Right.
And I remember going, what's in it? Like, I remember, and so they kind of walked me through the medication. And I was like, if I actually got exposed to what I could have gotten exposed, like nothing in that's going to help me. Right.
Right.
But here's the thing. The truth is I was actually at a place statistically where the risk of having carried HIV back onto the ship and into that space with 3,000 other cruise goers. And it is a truly, at least as far as we know, it's a highly contagious, very damaging virus that eventually shuts down your immune system. And as far as we know, other than inhibiting the growth of the virus, there's no way to kill that virus that is going to destroy your body. Right. So like we know this, there's at least there's a better research and better time frame. And we've got decades of understanding of this. Right. Nobody was inhibiting me from a goddamn thing while I was on that cruise or that ship or anything. Nobody, nothing. Only thing that was happening was the mental gymnastics in my head of like, am I going to die now? Like, do I have 5 years, 10 years? Like, how long is it going to take this virus to, like, all those things are in my head. But like, I think back and I'm like, we know what AIDS and HIV are for the most part. We're more educated. We have more time to deal with it and more people have been allowed to deal with it. Right. They could have locked me away in the infirmary for the rest of the damn cruise.
Yeah, they could have.
And they maybe had a right, because when you're in close proximity in something like a cruise ship, there's a good possibility I slip and hit my head and I bleed on the ship and somebody comes in contact with a bodily fluid that's now on the ship deck. They're going to be exposed to the same thing that I was exposed to.
Exactly. Right? That's a very good point. Very good point. It's crazy how
that's my thing. And then you look and nobody inhibited me then for something that is truly a death sentence at its core. Right. And nobody, like, it was like, oh, you don't want the anaphylaxis? All right, dinner's in like 2 hours. You should probably go take a shower and get ready for dinner. And we'll see you. We'll see you in the upstairs for dinner. It's like,
but this cold, we can't let you see your grandma.
Right, exactly. That's the stuff I step back and I'm like, really, people? Like, really?
Yeah, just sad.
Yeah.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that, but you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel, I was there. Most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that is, and my commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's administration that Iran regime that we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches, not to mention how Donald Trump has
all of this money
has treated and talked about America's military and military service people, calling them suckers and losers.
Hamas
has diminished the significance. We're talking
over each other. I apologize.
I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts, which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision.
So here's my question. Because first of all, that was an incredible salad she just served up.
Right.
But,
like nothing came out of her mouth other than, which is funny to her particular supporter base, right? I stand with Israel no matter what. I'm unwavering, which she has to. She's not only married to a Jewish man, but she's in the deep state. So
that'll actually hurt her.
But
I mean, believe it or not, that'll actually hurt her with a lot of the.
That's what I was going to say, though. That's my point. Is like she damned herself in that moment because the movement of culture in this country is fuck Israel, support Hamas, you know, the queers for Palestine shit. And again, it is a small portion of the population. I understand. It just happens to be the loudest thing amplified currently. Right.
Yeah. It's some crazy shit. Like, so I just to, you know, cause we're about an hour, but just to wrap it up real quick, my thoughts, and we can switch over to you, then we can go. But
yeah,
I don't think anybody's changed their mind about Kamala Harris. I don't think that that's happening. I think that we're 2.5 weeks out. I think people are going to vote for who they're going to vote for, and not vote for who they're not going to vote for. I think we are. It's so divided right now, America, that I've said this for a long time, and I've been a minority in this for a long time. It's time for a national divorce in some way. Like, I mean, in some way. And hear me out, people. So I'm not saying we have a civil war. I'm saying that we say to the federal government, maybe you guys should fuck off, and you have no authority to actually govern over us. The federal government, and this is just reality. The federal government is designed to govern by the consent of the governed.
That's right.
Right. That's us. Right. I frankly will say this: if it even appears there's any cheating in this election, I rescind my consent. Yes. And I mean on either side, to the point where I think we should have a full forensic audit no matter who fucking wins.
Right.
Like, I mean, I think we should have a full forensic audit no matter who fucking wins. I don't understand how this doesn't happen every single fucking time. These are our elections, right? So, but I don't think we're at a point where unity is salvageable. We might be able to decide, like, because there are people that just want to live completely different ways. Sure. And that is, and if you want to go, if you want, yeah, if you want the government to,
when you drive through the big legacy cities in this country, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, there's a reason there's a little Italy and a little China and a little Bulgaria and a little this and a little that, because people want to preserve their culture and their way of life, their way of living, and their way of thinking. That didn't mean you can't live under the same bubble per se, but you've got to respect the differences, and you've got to quit expecting everybody to be dead aligned.
That's the problem.
Except for one thing: the institution of freedom and liberty that exists that makes this country what it is. If you can't support the autonomy of individual freedom and liberty, then get the fuck out.
Well, there's a lot of people that are born here that have either through propaganda or their own personal experience. I don't know because I'm not one of them.
Sure.
They really don't like. I mean, I think it was AOC, like, you know, saying, "Are you going to die for a 250-year-old declaration?" Like, you know, somebody's gonna.
Sure.
No, but somebody's gonna, like, because that's my point. Like, if it's like, you know, the decision between like, hey, we're going to scrap the Constitution.
Yep.
You know, are you guys going to die over this? Us or you? Actually, somebody's gonna. You know, like, and I think that like we need to reach a stage where, you know, people talk about coexisting. The best way to coexist right now is for us to separate, because we can share like some of the same land. We can even share the same federal government as long as the federal government does what it's supposed to do and protects our borders. And like if we blast the federal government down to, you know, 5% of what it is right now, like to the point where it actually just does the job it was actually intended to do, and then we let the states decide how we live. I think we can coexist, because then people get to decide where they live in the country and they get to do all that stuff, right?
Bingo.
If we don't do that at some point in time, and I know this sounds crazy because the people on the left, like we have so many people on the left that have like, they've gotten used to being just straight up violent. Like they don't get their way, they riot. I mean, they rioted when Trump got elected people. I mean, they literally, like inauguration, they rioted in DC. None of them ended up in prison, but we've allowed the children to basically think that they can throw a violent temper tantrum and destroy other citizens' property and get away with it. And I'm going to say that at some point in time, people are going to fuck around and find out in areas that is not happening. Like
Bingo.
that does not happen where I'm at. That shit happened in like Portland, Seattle, places like that. At some point in time, like, you know what happens when people fuck around and find out? Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yes.
Like, I mean,
exactly.
They painted that boy, like, that's another thing too. Like that whole thing, and I'm going to end it on this. I'm going to end mine on this. Then you can go.
No, I'm with you.
That whole thing showed me, like, they don't even care about truth. They were calling him a racist immediately. Right. He killed 3 white people, or he killed the only people that died were white people, right? And like they're like, oh my God, they were murdered. One was a fucking pedo,
right?
Like you guys are more
head in with a skateboard.
Right. I mean,
fuck around and find out I'm carrying a gun. You're carrying a skateboard. You showed up to the fight with the wrong tool, bro.
But that was the thing. They had they were in such a frenzy because they had been allowed to act out that way. Right. That these people had no qualms about approaching somebody with a fucking semi-automatic weapon. Like that shit's next level fucking whacked up.
Again, because like it's not even the being allowed to act. It's just the absolute cognitive dissonance that has been perpetuated over and over again. That nobody's seen what happens when you touch a gun, right? Because they've been told guns bad. Like it's just a sad state of affairs. But you're exactly right. That's where they have to go. And you're right. I think that's where we're headed as a nation. I think over time, and that will cause an escalation. I mean, that's what happened in the Civil War, right? It's not like we just up and declared war one day. People were fighting back against all these different things in the system. People were getting killed or imprisoned and becoming that. And eventually the population as a whole rose up on either side and went, fuck you. We're going to fight for what we stand for, And
exactly,
we're definitely headed there. I mean,
we are definitely headed. So
no, I mean, the signs are all there, man. I totally agree.
Yeah, they are, and I hope we can avoid it. I really do. I hope we can avoid any violence. I really do, because while I'm a big proponent that violence should always be on the table, because when violence is always on the table, people tend to behave better.
Checks and balances, man. Period.
And while I believe that, I don't want it to happen, but people are going to keep fucking around and they're going to find out. Like the non-debatables, right? Like, dude, if a guy that looks like me or you walks into the women's bathroom after my wife, he's going to the hospital at the best, right?
Exactly.
And I don't give a fuck. Like, nobody's going to make my wife feel unsafe. And people can say whatever they I've had people like, oh, such Neanderthal thinking. Okay, I'm good.
I'm good with that.
I don't even take that as an insult because if that's what it takes to protect my wife, great,
right?
I'm good. And I think that the right gets too caught up on, they worry about the names that they're going to get called. You guys are a bunch of pussies, by the way.
People pleasing, man, it'll fuck you every time.
Yeah, I mean they like got you frozen, right? Like in 2020 when they started calling you guys homophobes and transphobes and everybody was labeled racist and shit like that. A bunch of you bitches paused, like. I remember for a while they were like, "Oh, but you're anti-vax, you're anti-vax, you're anti-vax." I'm like, I am anti-vax. Okay. I am anti this vaccine. Okay. You better fucking believe it.
Right.
You know why? Because I have common goddamn sense. Right. And that's just the approach I think that they should take. Now, I think the right wants to do whatever they can to not be seen as the violent ones, and that's great. Sure. That's really good. I mean, you guys are going to let people burn your cities down. Yeah, but you guys are going to let people burn your cities fucking down just so you cannot be seen as violent. At some point in time, we need to realize that the founders set up our Second Amendment for exactly what's happening right motherfucking now. Exactly. The government we have now is, in my opinion, the government that the founders warned us about, and the Tree of Liberty needs water.
Yes, it does.
All right. Hey, man.
Very good space to end it, bro. That is wisdom beyond wisdom. 100%.
So we'll be back tomorrow. Michael, you're more than welcome to join us. I don't know if Mark's going to be here or not, but you're more than welcome to join again. I hope all of you have a great night. Thank you for tuning in to Evening Rants. Follow us on Locals. Follow us on Rumble. Follow us on on YouTube while they allow us to stay on YouTube. Follow follow at Mark Lobliner on X and on Instagram. Follow at the MFing COO. That's me on X and on and on Instagram. Make sure you follow at Mike Robson on everywhere. And then we hope to talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds good. Peace out, guys.
Peace out.
Ladies, come here. If you want to burn body fat, not just a little bit, but a lot, I got the perfect stack for you. It's 3 products. Ember, which is a powerful thermogenic that you take in the morning, suppresses your appetite to a degree, and it raises your metabolic rate and have you burning calories all day long. Alchemy, what Alchemy is going to do is it allows you to eat those carbs in your meal guilt-free. It's going to take those carbs and burn it off as fuel, so you have plenty of energy throughout the day. Before you go to bed, you're going to take no morbidity. It's the best part of the stack because while you sleep, a deep, restful sleep, it's going to be burning calories, burning fat all night long. So you're going to wake up not feeling groggy, feeling refreshed, ready to go about your day. So we got you covered all day long. This is called the Holy Trinity Stack. And ladies, it's for y'all, for the queens.